In my high school days, the idea of becoming a DoorDash driver intrigued me, but it took a whole month before I mustered the courage to give it a shot. However, once I completed my first delivery, I was hooked. The convenience and flexibility of the gig were enticing, and soon I found myself dashing a couple of times a day, and even on most weekends. One night, I decided to work extra late during a holiday weekend. I hit the road around 8 p.m. and planned to dash until 2 a.m. as I cruised along, shuttling back and forth from the 24/7 McDonald's. The cool summer night lent an eerie vibe to the hours. The silence and loneliness of the late-night drives made the nights feel strangely haunting. Around 2 a.m., I received another McDonald's order, and this time, it was said to be delivered at a warehouse. The delivery notes instructed me to enter through the side doors and drop off the order at the front desk. Curious and slightly apprehensive, I accepted the delivery and made my way to the mysterious warehouse. As I approached the warehouse, a fog began to roll in, adding to the eerie ambience of the night. I pulled into the large parking lot, which was mostly empty, save for a few semi-trucks parked in the distance. The warehouse itself had a stern, industrial look, with its large, rectangular structure and minimal windows. A single door stood at the front, and I noticed another, smaller side door with a heavy metal frame and a small glass window. The delivery instructions explicitly stated that the side door was the point of entry, so I decided to give it a shot. Peering through the small glass window, I tried to get a glimpse inside, but the glare from my car's headlights made it difficult to see anything clearly. Unfazed, I took a deep breath and swung open the heavy metal door, revealing a small, dimly lit entrance room. The room was shrouded in darkness, and the only light source was a dim safety light tucked away in the corner. I felt a chill run down my spine as I stepped inside, the silence and stillness of the place adding to my sense of unease. There was no front desk in sight, and as I turned the corner, I was met with an elongated, unlit corridor stretching into the darkness. The darkness seemed impenetrable, and the corridor felt like an abyss. It sent shivers down my spine, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. I hesitated for a moment, debating whether to venture into the pitch-black hallway or not. Although I knew that many places with night shift workers kept unnecessary lights off, the darkness of this warehouse felt excessive. It was as if something wanted to hide within its shadows, and the thought made me apprehensive about proceeding further. Curiosity and a desire to complete the delivery encouraged me to pull out my phone and double-check the instructions. Everything seemed right. The side door was the correct entry point. However, my instincts urged me to reconsider, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right about the whole situation. The warehouse's silence seemed deafening, and the more I thought about proceeding into the dark hallway, the more the fear in my gut intensified. I decided to call the customer to confirm the delivery details, hoping to gain some reassurance. Dialing the number, I heard a phone ring echo from the other end of the corridor. The ringing seemed to be coming from within the darkness. My heart pounded in my chest as I waited for someone to answer the call. After a few moments, the phone rang again, louder and closer this time, sending shivers down my spine. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the dark corridor, walking briskly towards me. It was a large man, but what struck me as odd was his silence. He didn't say a word as he approached, and his presence seemed to grow more unnerving with each step. A sense of danger washed over me, and my instincts kicked into high gear. My mind raced with thoughts of the potential dangers of this situation. Fearful that something might happen, I quickly left the delivery at the door and rushed back to my car, not daring to look back. As I drove away, my eyes caught a glimpse of movement from behind the small glass window on the door. My heart pounded as I wondered what I had just encountered. The whole experience left me shaken and uneasy, and I couldn't help but feel that something was off about that warehouse. In the following days, the unsettling encounter continued to plague my thoughts. My mind kept playing out various scenarios of what might have happened if I had stayed longer or encountered the mysterious man face to face. A few days later, on Monday evening, my phone rang, and to my surprise, it was the police department. They questioned me about my presence at the warehouse during the early hours of Saturday morning. They had security footage of my car arriving at the scene. I explained that I was just a DoorDash driver making a delivery, and I presented them with the delivery receipt as proof. The police informed me that the warehouse workers had returned from their holiday weekend to find a DoorDash delivery sitting abandoned in the middle of the dark hallway. It turned out that the person who had ordered the delivery used a fake account and had seemingly broken into the warehouse. The situation was unsettling enough, but the strangest part was that the intruder didn't even take the bag of food. It appeared as though they were searching for something else, leaving a sense of sinister intentions. Relieved that nothing had happened to me, I couldn't help but be haunted by what might have been if I had stayed longer or confronted the mysterious man. The incident served as a stark reminder that even in the seemingly ordinary and mundane, dangers and mysteries could lurk, hidden in the darkness of the night. From that moment on, I remained vigilant during my deliveries, always mindful of the potential risks that lay hidden in the shadows. During my high school years, I found myself in need of a part-time job. Luckily, my best friend's parents owned a restaurant nearby and offered me a position doing deliveries. I was excited to work with my friend and earn some extra money, so I gladly accepted the opportunity. At first, everything seemed promising. I enjoyed driving around town, delivering orders to different customers, and earning tips along the way. However, there was one aspect that made the job a bit uncomfortable for me. My friend's parents were my bosses. Don't get me wrong, they were nice people, but it just felt weird having my friend's parents telling me what to do. At the beginning of my employment, I thought I would get used to it over time, but that never happened. Whenever something went even slightly awry, they would react as if it were a major catastrophe. I found it difficult to work under such scrutiny, and it put a strain on my relationship with my friend. Another frustrating aspect was the way they scheduled shifts. Initially, I had hoped to work together with my friend, but they intentionally scheduled us on opposite days. It was disappointing, as I had hoped this job would give us an opportunity to spend more time together. Instead, it felt like we rarely saw each other. Despite these challenges, I continued working at the restaurant, as I needed the money and didn't want to let down my friend's parents. I even tried to look at the positives. The flexible hours and the opportunity to earn tips were appealing, especially for a high school student. As time went on, I became more proficient at the job, and the deliveries became routine. But, like any job, there were slow days too. Whenever business slowed down, my friend's dad would become visibly annoyed. He'd express his frustration at me, even though it wasn't my fault that orders weren't coming in. These moments made me feel unappreciated and uncomfortable in the workplace. One particular evening, during my third and final month working there, it was just like any other night. I began my shift with a few quick deliveries, but as the night wore on, the number of orders dwindled. Around 8:30 p.m., it seemed like a typical slow period. An hour had passed since my last delivery, and I was anticipating the end of my shift in just 30 minutes. However, everything changed when my friend's dad received a phone call around 8:30 p.m. It was an order for delivery. He quickly prepared the food and handed me the bag, instructing me to make the delivery. I pulled out my phone to check the address, only to realize it was quite far away, a 40-minute drive from our small town. I expressed my concern, as my shift was about to end in just 15 minutes. And this delivery would take significantly longer. I suggested that perhaps someone else could take it, but my friend's dad seemed irritated with my reluctance. It was clear he was upset that I had been waiting around during the slow period. Despite my reservations, I decided to go through with the delivery. As I embarked on the long drive, it was already approaching 10 p.m. when I arrived at the destination. The location was secluded, with no houses nearby except for a row of about 6 old and outdated-looking houses. As I parked on the street, a sense of unease washed over me. It was eerily quiet, and the houses seemed almost deserted. I approached the address, and it was then that I noticed something peculiar. The houses appeared dark, and I couldn't see any signs of activity inside. The whole area gave off a spooky vibe, and I hesitated before ringing the doorbell. When no one answered, I tried knocking as well, growing impatient. I looked around, and the street was empty with no cars in sight. It was starting to feel like a scene from a horror movie. I had half a mind to leave the food at the doorstep, but I didn't want to risk not getting paid for the delivery. Just as I was contemplating my next move, I noticed a light moving inside one of the houses. I felt relieved, thinking that the customer had finally come to the door. However, as the light moved through the downstairs windows and towards the front door, a sense of unease returned. The door opened, revealing a young man in his early 20s, holding a large flashlight in one hand and a grocery bag in the other. He greeted me and apologized for taking so long to answer the door. I felt a bit uneasy, but I handed him the bag. However, he held up both hands to show me they were full and asked if I could put the food on the kitchen table for him. I was taken aback by his request. The situation felt off, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I glanced inside the house and noticed that it seemed dusty and abandoned, with no signs of anyone actually living there. The young man's request seemed strange, as though he didn't actually belong there. I politely declined, explaining that I was in a rush and needed him to pay for the order so I could leave the food on the porch. He didn't seem happy with my response, and I noticed something in his eyes that made me feel uncomfortable. He stepped outside onto the porch, and I instinctively took a step back, keeping a safe distance. I had a gut feeling that something was about to happen, and I didn't want to wait around to find out what. Instead, I dropped the bag and sprinted back to my car. As I drove away, I noticed the young man still standing on the porch, watching me intently. My heart was racing as I headed back to the restaurant. I felt a mix of fear and anxiety, unsure of what had just transpired. I knew I had to share the strange encounter with my friend's dad, but deep down, I dreaded his reaction. Nonetheless, I mustered the courage to recount the bizarre events of the delivery. Unfortunately, my fears were confirmed. It was as if the potential danger I had faced didn't even register with him. His indifference and lack of empathy made me realize that this job wasn't worth the stress and discomfort it brought. Feeling fed up with the whole situation, I decided right then and there to quit the job. I couldn't tolerate working under such unsympathetic management any longer. While I knew my friend might be upset with me for leaving, I couldn't continue in an environment that disregarded my well-being. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the eerie feeling from that night. I couldn't help but wonder what the man's intentions were. Was he trying to rob me, or was there something even more sinister at play? I debated whether I should report the incident to the police, but my reluctance to get involved in any further trouble led me to keep it to myself. Months passed, and life gradually returned to normal. I tried to put the strange encounter behind me, focusing on my studies and other activities. However, there was always a lingering unease in the back of my mind, a reminder of the potential dangers that lurked in the world. One evening, while scrolling through news articles online, a particular headline caught my attention: "Mysterious incident at abandoned warehouse." As I read the article, my heart sank and a cold shiver ran down my spine. The description of the location and the eerie events recounted in the article matched the address where I had attempted the ill-fated delivery. According to the report, several individuals had ventured into the abandoned warehouse and claimed to experience strange occurrences, including hearing unexplained noises and witnessing inexplicable movements. Some even mentioned encountering a figure that matched the description of the man I had encountered that night. Reading the accounts from others who had visited the place sent chills down my spine. I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief that I had escaped the situation unscathed. The realization that I had unwittingly stumbled upon a potentially dangerous location only added to the unsettling nature of the entire ordeal. The incident left a lasting impact on me, causing me to approach future job opportunities with caution and skepticism. I learned the importance of trusting my instincts and prioritizing my safety above all else. While I had initially taken the job to spend time with my friend and earn some extra money, I now understood that it wasn't worth compromising my well-being. As time passed, I grew more appreciative of the experiences that shaped my decision-making and helped me navigate through life's uncertainties. And while the memory of that fateful delivery night would never fade completely, I found solace in the knowledge that I had learned valuable lessons and emerged stronger from the experience. From that day forward, I made a promise to myself to prioritize safety and trust my gut instincts in every aspect of my life. While the world may hold its share of mysteries and potential dangers, I had learned to be vigilant, cautious, and mindful of the choices I made. And with these newfound perspectives, I embrace the future, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.